According to the Greek myth, when King Minos of Crete offended the god Poseidon, Minos' punishment was that his wife, Queen Pasiphae, fell in love with a bull. This relationship produced the Minotaur, a creature that was half human and half bull. King Minos, angry and ashamed at what had happened, trapped the Minotaur in an elaborate labyrinth from which it could not escape. And, legend has it, that the location of this labyrinth was the Palace of Knossos in Crete. The exhibition we visited in July 2023 at the Ashmolean Museum, Oxford, showcases archaeological finds from the site at Knossos and weaves them effortlessly with the Minotaur myth. Here we share with you a few of our favourite sensory-themed elements.
This is a visual episode, folks, so if you've not already done so, head over to our Instagram or Twitter, where you'll find photos of what we're about to discuss. We're here at the Ashmolean Museum in Oxford to take in the Knossos Myth and Reality exhibition. Woo! Whoop!
It sounds like we had a great time.
It sounds like we were having a fantastic time.
Which we did.
Yep, agree. Can I go first?
Of course you can, go ahead.
Okay, thanks. My first pick is the bull relief fresco at the north entrance of the palace. The fresco is in a narrow passage that leads into the halls beyond. This would have been one of the first things that visitors to the palace saw. If you look at the fresco, you've got a orangey brown bull against a blue backdrop, life-size. Do you agree?
Larger than life-size, but bulls are pretty large.
They're pretty big, aren't they? Well, they probably vary, but...
A couple of metres tall, for sure.
Yeah. You've got the open mouth. The eye is quite striking, the red pupil of the eye. You've got the head lowered, so the horns are coming at you. It's like it's coming for you or it's going to charge. It's not a friendly, come here and I'm going to give you a hug.
No, and its legs are also in the air, so it's definitely in motion. It's leaping towards you in a confrontational manner.
Sure, I would say. But also 3D. So the technique that they used for this, quite rare, that flourished in the late Minoan period. And it's a 3D plastering technique. And you can see from the picture that it's quite high relief. And I would say quite tempting to touch, right? If you're a visitor in that narrow passageway, you're going to want to stroke it.
I definitely would run my hands over that.
And the smoothness of the base and then the crinkly horns. Yeah, you've got some nice differences in the touchings going on there.
And also in the level of the relief, don't you? Because it's like the bull is emerging from the wall. Always.
Yeah, because the body is flat and then you've got the head and the horns that are in much higher relief. So the question is, are there stewards in that passage? Are they checking?
What, that you're not touching?
That you're not touching it. Could you get a cheeky touch in, a cheeky stroke?
I don't see why you couldn't touch it.
My thinking is it's a narrow passageway. You know, you can't fit too many stewards in there, right?
Maybe it's something that you're invited to touch, because if bulls were lucky, it might be something you give a little rub to.
Yeah, maybe that's true. I would hope so. As a visitor to the palace, I would want to touch that.
There's no miniature linear B sign saying do not touch this relief.
That is so true. So perhaps it was welcomed, as you suggest. One thing I did read about on livejournal.com is a particular anecdote. When the relief was excavated, it was so realistic, it freaked out the people who'd done the excavation, and then they thought that they disturbed a demon.
Do you think it's meant to be a statement when you enter the palace complex?
Yes, an authoritative power statement.
But also one that you want to touch.
Yeah. So in conclusion, on arrival, quite a scary bull, but you're compelled to touch it. So you want to carry on into the palace and see what's next. Yeah, just like us in the exhibition.
And what drew my attention at the exhibition, if you'd like to hear it.
I would love to.
Was a collection of loom weights.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what loom weights are?
No.
Should I describe them to you?
Yes, please.
These drew my eye because they're a collection of maybe 20 stones. They're large, clamshell size. You know when you buy a soap dish clamshell
One that's specifically that design.
They do tend to use them as soap dishes. I
Yeah.
don't know why. That's just in
They
my
were of an
head.
era.
Of
I
an
think.
era.
Yeah, maybe the early 90s.
But that's really good description for these, because that's squared off at one end,
Mhm.
and then the rest of the shape is rounded. There's a tiny little hole at the top. Not tiny. There's a significant hole at the top.
Yeah,
the opposite of
tiny.
or
Mhm.
through which a thread was looped. Now, the way that loom weights work, or these particular ones, you have all of the threads hanging down, and then the loom weights go at the bottom of the thread
Mhm.
to keep the vertical threads taut, so that then you can weave the horizontal threads into the textile.
Ah,
You
okay.
see?
Yes.
So it's to keep that tension while you're weaving the horizontals.
Oh, okay.
There were loads and loads of these found at the site at Knossos, which is supporting evidence to the huge textile industry that was going on there. Now, we've also got other evidence for this. I'm sure you saw in the exhibition, all the Linear B clay tablets documenting all kind of boring bits of admin and everyday life, which you would love.
Hey.
Basically, a collection of clipboards were found in clay. And on these miniature clay tablets was information about admin. For example, they had 100,000 sheep.
That is a lot of sheep.
Why would you need sheep, though?
For the wool?
For the wool.
Mhm.
They also had documentation about feeding the female textile workers, and also about bales of wool and that kind of thing.
Where would they keep 100,000 sheep?
Well, not inside.
Well, I know.
They were outside,
but still, that's a lot of land, right?
This all points to this huge textile industry, and kind of makes me think that it wasn't really a palace. It sounds more like some kind of place for production, because why would you need this much weaving and that many sheep? What I want to focus on here, though, is the sound that this weaving, this constant clacking and clamoring together of the stones, but not only the stones knocking together, which would be quite loud if you've got, I don't know, 100 looms going all off at the same time. But on top of that, you've got the wooden crossbeams pushing the threads together. So it's a very, very loud activity, weaving. And the palace or the site would have been filled with this echoing noise of textile production. It would have been quite overpowering, I think.
Yeah, and they didn't go in for carpets, did they? So
not a lot of soft furnishing.
A lot of echoing.
Well, actually, they were weaving, so they could.
Oh, actually, yeah, maybe
there were carpets everywhere.
It could have been very well buffered.
Oh yeah, maybe it was actually very quiet.
Yeah,
good point.
Could hear a pin drop.
Now, we've got a third item to talk about, and we actually chose the same thing. So we're going to do a joint discussion about this one. Laura, would you like to introduce that?
Yes, I would. It is a bull's head write-on. And a write-on, for those of you who do not know, is a wine pourer or a pouring vessel.
This write-on is about the size of a football, probably.
Yep.
Made of ceramic. It's got a handle at the top. It's the shape of a bull's head and beginning part of the neck. It's decorated in black and white, stylized blobs, really.
Blobs, is that the official art term?
Blobs and concentric circles.
Yeah.
That's a very typical Minoan design, though, isn't it?
It is. And you know what? I just saw that and thought silhouette of Mickey or Minnie Mouse. The sense that we will focus on with this little beauty is sight, for many reasons. It's quite visually striking. I do not own any pouring apparatus that is anywhere near as fancy as this.
I've got a jug from IKEA that does not look like that.
So it's got beautiful design on it. It's intricate. It's very beautifully made. There's a lot of detail there, but it doesn't look very practical.
No.
In comparison to its overall size, the handle looks quite small, looks quite fiddly, actually. Maybe you could get 1 or 2 fingers in there. And how do you put it down?
Well, it's definitely a pour. Well, so this is the thing, isn't it? It's not for drinking from. This is a vessel which pours.
Which pours into another vessel.
Into a cup or a bowl.
So if I was a guest in the Palace of Knossos and my wine had run out, I would be holding up my goblet frequently for a refill. And a very kind serving person from the Palace of Knossos household would come with a write-on and fill me up.
Yes, but this is very specific, an elaborate filling up device, isn't
Yes.
it? How I imagine this working is not necessarily for filling up wine on a regular basis. It's more of a showy piece.
So you're showing off your posh tableware.
You're showing off your posh tableware, but you're also, it's making kind of ceremony out of the wine pouring exercise.
Mm-hmm.
Because what would happen is the right one is filled up and then the wine would flow out of its mouth.
Yes.
And in my head, it's more of a sacrificial object, or an object used in sacrificial ceremonies, because that wine coming out of the bull's snout almost is very akin to a bull being sacrificed and the blood pouring,
blood
out
gushing out
of its muzzle.
Yeah.
It's very ceremonial, isn't it?
Yes. So not so much pleasant drinking party. Can you top up my Prosecco?
More I'm showing off, or I'm performing some kind of ceremony.
Yes. And did you know that the word rhiton, it comes from the Greek rhitos, meaning to flow?
Oh, well, that would make sense then, isn't it? It's not really a vessel for holding liquid. It's a vessel through which liquid flows.
Yes. So it's all about the motion, isn't it? Of it flowing through from something, through it into something else.
Very visually striking.
Yeah. So I imagine if these are being used in a sacrificial ceremony or any sort of ceremony, or even just a very, very, very posh dinner party,
For sure,
then people aren't going to be wanting to put these down. You're going to want your serving staff to stand around with them,
holding them.
You want them to be held prominent and to be seen, which is probably for the best, because if you tried to wedge this anywhere, it's going to slip, right?
And it's ceramic, so it'll just
it's just going to crash. Everyone's going to turn around and look at you. Who did that? Well, I think that's a good point to end on today.
Thank you for joining our little bonus episode.
Thank you, folks. Remember, you can follow Sistory History on Instagram, Twitter and Facebook, or why not email us with an episode request at sistoryhistory@gmail.com. See you later.
Bye.